Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We got to talk a little Seattle Mariners today, I think, because we've had a lot of Seahawks stuff to go through lately. We finally had a win to discuss after the Niners game, so everyone was happy about that. We had a lot to go over, but I want to break it up a little bit. I want to talk about the Mariners for a little bit here because they're the sports team in Seattle that seems like they're actually headed in the right direction. We've got a lot of sports teams in Seattle that seem like they're going the wrong way. The Mariners look like they're going the right way, but now we got this lockout to contend with. As of now, the lockout is now a week old, and I'm not aware of any indication that it's going to stop anytime soon. So it is a real lockout. It's not just some one day thing that they do to scare people and then they get it all sorted out. No. It's a real lockout, and I don't know when it's going to end. I don't know if it's going to interfere with the season. Obviously, I really hope it doesn't because this looks like the team that might actually break through in Seattle. So that's really all I can say about it. I don't know a ton about the specifics of the lockout. I don't know if there's any progress being made in negotiations. I don't know. I don't know if missing a lot of games this year, I don't know if missing the entire season is a realistic possibility right now, but it seems like that's at least on the table. So, first things first, we got to deal with that. And we can't sign any players, we can't make any real moves except for like minor league stuff until it's resolved. But that being said, we can take a look at where we stand right now and where we will be focusing our efforts once the lockout ends. Because I've been thinking a lot about how this team is coming together now that we've made a couple of signings, or, well, really one signing, one re signing, and one a trade. So I wanted to look at how the team is coming together and really kind of get everything down in one video. And we've been talking about this a little bit in some streams lately, but I wanted to actually make a video about this. So the 2022 Seattle Mariners, as I see them right now, I've made a little spreadsheet here. We're going to go through it, and we're going to see where we might need help. I think it's good to take kind of a bird's eye view of your roster sometimes like this and see what's up. So we're just going to go through the different elements of this team, and we're going to see where we might need assistance and where things might be a little shaky and where things are really good. So let's go ahead and start with the lineup, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the offense as I see it right now, and obviously it's going to change a little bit if you're playing like a left-handed pitcher or a right-handed pitcher. There are always going to be those little adjustments, but we're going Crawford, Frazier, France in the 1-2-3 hole. Crawford and Frazier are good at controlling the zone. They're not wild swingers, and they do get on base at a reasonable clip. They have high averages. Those are guys that you want to have in your 1-2 holes. France nearly hit 300 last year, really good season. And of course, Mitch Haniger, who cracked 40 home runs. He's your cleanup guy. Kyle Lewis is in the 5 hole for right now. If he can stay healthy, he should be able to supply some power. Jared Kelnick is in the 6 hole. Luis Torrens is in the 7 hole. Toro's in the 8 hole. And Cal Riley is in the 9 hole. So that's how I see the lineup coming together right now. And when I put this in front of me, when I really took a look at this lineup, I was actually kind of surprised at how comfortable I was with it. Except for Cal Riley, all these guys can hit. All these guys are not automatic outs at the plate. And Cal Riley, he can get better because obviously he was a rookie last year. And besides, catchers usually don't hit for massive numbers. You just kind of want a guy who's not a complete waste out there. And Cal Riley only needs to get a little better to be at the point where he's not just a complete waste of space out there. So, given how many at-bats we had to give to complete black holes last year, this is pretty good. And I was surprised at how the initial lineup comes together in a way that really should make sense. Defensively, it's nothing out of the ordinary. Riley's behind the plate. France first base, Frazier second base, Crawford shortstop, Toro's at third base. I'm not sure if Toro's a rock solid third baseman. I'm not 100% sure if I'm on board with that, but as of right now, he would be the only guy who could do it. Kelnick's in left field, Lewis is in center field, and Haniger's in right field. The one question mark I have would be Kelnick in left field, but I think he can do it. I don't know if he's a great defensive player yet, by the way. We last year he was pretty bad in the field. Actually, he was arguably terrible, but that was basically his first major league, actually literally his first major league action. So whatever, it's fine. So if he can get better, then defensively, I think you're doing pretty well. Cal, I don't know if he's going to be able to play a high-level defense behind the plate at the MLB level. But Crawford's good. Frazier should be good. I think France is fine at first base. And Haniger, I think he's pretty good out there. Lewis, he's fine. Although we need to see him develop in some defensive areas. And again, it's pretty good. All right, so we'll come back to the lineup a little later in this video, but let's go over the pitching right now. So right now, as of this moment, I see it breaking out like this. You got Robbie Ray as your ace, #1 pitcher, obviously. Logan Gilbert I currently have as the #2, but he could get bumped as far down as 4, I think, and it's not unreasonable. I really like what Logan Gilbert did last year. I think he came along nicely, but it would not shock me if he didn't take the steps necessary to become a great #2. You might see him in the 3-hole or the 4-hole at some point this season. It depends on how he goes compared to those two guys. Marco in the 3-hole, and Marco didn't have his best year last year, but he still ended up with an ERA under 3. So to me, Marco can be a great #3. I don't even have a huge problem with it if he ends up being the #2 because he probably will have a slightly better year this year. It's not like age was the reason why he was bad last year. He's not old or anything. He just really had a hard time early in the season. Flexen's in the 4-hole for the rotation. And Flexen was really good last year. I think people sleep on him a little bit. It would not amaze me if he got bumped up to #2. If Gilbert struggles and Gonzo doesn't get back to form like he was a couple years ago. But these 3 guys are all kind of interchangeable to me. It depends on how they play. It depends on how they look in spring training. And at the #5, you have Justin Dunn. He's the only guy here who we can't put a lot of faith in, but he did look pretty good last year in his starts. I think his ERA was around 3.6 or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was fine, and then he got hurt and never really came back. So if Dunn's your #5, I think that's pretty good. So again, I was looking at this rotation. I was like, I'm cool with this. This is not bad at all. And then you have the bullpen, which I thought was going to be a thing this offseason. But again, once I actually got it all down on paper and looked at it, I was like, okay, I think you can rock with these guys with one possible exception. Now, this is in no particular order because you play matchups out of the bullpen anyway, but you've got Sewald, Casey Sadler, Steckenrider, Swanson, Keenan Middleton, Diego Castillo, and Anthony Sandwich. So I was looking at this and I was like, with the exception of Sandwich, I kind of like all these guys. That is not a bad top 7 of your bullpen. All of these guys, with the exception of Sandwich, pitched well most of the time last year. Maybe not Castillo, but Castillo mostly pitched well. He just had a couple of really bad meltdowns. But these top 5, I can mess with those guys. I think you can go to war with that as the top end of your bullpen. Maybe you need a little help down here, but I was impressed with what I saw when I actually wrote it all down. All right, so let's talk about depth here because there is one thing I want to get into when it comes to building this team, and it's going to segue into what I'm going to say this team needs to do when the lockout ends. Now, I'm not breaking new ground here. I think everybody who follows this team knows that this is the case, but I want to take a look at our depth a little bit on the in terms of the lineup. And here's the way I see it right now. These are the guys who can be replacement players in the event of an injury or somebody sucking or whatever, needing to give somebody a day off. Backup center has to be Tom Murphy. He's a little bit of a disaster behind the plate, but his bat is not a disaster. So if we could maybe, if Torrens could become competent behind the plate, then that might be a better option. But Murphy, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna move on from that one. But you guys know, if you guys watch enough Mariners football, baseball, you know. First base, I think the best options in terms of depth here would be Jake Bauers. You got Jose Marmolejos and Evan White. So kind of an interesting array here. Bauers, he's just one of those replacement level ish guys, but he's fine. Marmolejos, awful year last year, but he could bounce back. And I don't know what we do with Evan White at this point. The emergence of Ty France means that Evan White has now become kind of a luxury, but we have him locked up for a little while here, and he's got to figure out how to do something with that bat because he's got power, and we know he's a great defensive player. He's a better defensive player than Ty France. So Evan White, if he can get it together, would be a great backup first baseman. I think I would love that. So I'm rooting for him. Second base, I think your number one backup at second base would be Dylan Moore, followed by Shed Long, and then Sam Haggerty. The only guy here that I see as being more than replacement level is Dylan Moore. He's been good in the past. He was not very good last year. He was one of those guys who was kind of a black hole. But he is excellent on the base paths. So what I would say is that you can use him as a pinch runner. And that's pretty good. He's going to steal bases for you. And shortstop, the only backup shortstop who I see as being capable on our roster right now is Dylan Moore. So he would also be our backup shortstop. We don't really have a backup third baseman. I guess if you held a gun to our heads, it would probably be Dylan Moore. But we got a problem right here, and we're going to loop around to that. And I think you guys know what I'm going to say by the end of this video. But as of right now, I don't really think anybody on this team can be the backup third baseman. And as for the outfield, I kind of played a mix and match here. Most of the guys here are backup left fielders. Most of these guys have most of their experience in left field. Jake Fraley, Dylan Moore, Jose Marmolejos, they've all played left field. But that also goes for Shed Long, Bauers, and Haggerty. So we're going to have to figure out who can play right field and center field. Right now, the only thing we know for sure is that Taylor Trammell can play some center field. Maybe not well, but he can play it. It's not guaranteed to be a disaster. He is a semi-competent center fielder. He's not going to pee on himself out there in the field. But Shed Long, I don't know if he can play center. Bauers, I don't know if he can play right. Sam Haggerty, I don't know if he can play right. Maybe Dylan Moore can play right, and you move Haggerty back to left. I don't know, but we do have a little bit of an imbalance in the outfield right now. We don't have a lot going for us at center or right. So I just wrote it out like this for the sake of not listing 800 backup left fielders. But we're going to have to figure something out here. Either we need to bring in an outfielder who kind of pushes all these guys to the side and becomes the de facto backup center fielder or right fielder, or we need to call up somebody like a Julio Rodriguez, or basically anybody in our farm system who we really like who's going to be an outfielder. I think Rodriguez is chief among those guys, but this is how I see our depth going right now, and the problem is pretty obvious. We don't have a backup third baseman right now, I don't think, but the bigger problem when I look at this array of depth is that we don't have a single guy who I like to pinch hit in a high leverage situation except maybe Jake Fraley. Jake Fraley knows how to work pitch counts. Jake Fraley knows how to get on base, although that did dry up by the end of the season. Maybe it's him. Maybe he can be the guy. But there's nobody here that I really like to be able to pinch hit. So what I'm going to say here is that I want to put Toro over here before the season starts. Toro should be the pinch hitter in high leverage situations. Like if we've got a big at-bat trying to save a game or win a game, and Cal Riley's coming up to the plate, then Toro should be able to come in for him and pinch hit and give you somebody who's a little more competent at working a pitch count and getting on base. So that has to be the primary focus of the offseason once the lockout ends. Chris Bryant would be pretty much perfect because he can play right field as well. He can play third base. He can play some first base. He can he can be everything that we need. So Kris Bryant is my guy right now, probably more than anyone else, because he's such a perfect fit for everything that we need. And finally, the rotation depth. I just wrote this out just for the sake of being a completionist. Justice Sheffield and Nick Margevicius are the only guys on this team right now who could be starting pitchers who are not in the top 5 right now. Sheffield was pretty bad last year, and I kind of lost most of my faith in him being part of the future. Margevicius was really bad as well, but he's been competent in the past, so I guess there are worse things than those two guys. At least they have some experience, but it's a little thin once you get past the top 5 here, right? We could stand to use a Tyler Anderson guy to be the number 6, a guy who could replace Dunn if Dunn doesn't recover from his injury well or just isn't pitching well. So I think you could stand to bring in a guy like a Tyler Anderson or the Rodriguez guy from the Red Sox who I liked. Somebody who can be like an insurance plan if Justin Dunn goes sour or somebody else gets hurt. So that's kind of the bird's eye view of the Mariners right now. I just wanted to take a video to really step back and see where we're at. So I'm hoping to whoever needs my hope directed at them, that once the lockout clears, the first thing we do is go throw a bunch of money at Kris Bryant. He would immediately be our starting third baseman. He allows Toro to move to the utility player role off the bench. He's going to pinch hit in a lot of games. He's going to be a pinch, well, not a pinch runner, but a replacement fielder in some situations as well, probably. He's going to be a guy who probably plays in most games despite not being a day-to-day starter. So really hoping we do that. There are other options too, like Trevor Story, but after thinking about it and looking at stuff, I think Kris Bryant is probably a little better than Story, just because Story hasn't actually played third base very much before. And I think Kris Bryant's versatility just makes it a slam dunk home run. So Kris Bryant and a capable starting pitcher like a Tyler Anderson re-signing or a Rodriguez signing. That's where I'm at right now. So, but look, guys, this is coming together. This is not bad at all. Barring massive injuries, which do happen, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it sometimes, we should not be giving a ton of at-bats to black holes like Jake Bauers and Dylan Moore and Sam Haggerty this year. All right, I will see you guys later today with more Seahawks stuff, but had to talk about the Mariners for a bit. Hope the lockout clears. Go Mariners. See you guys later.